After her first depressive episode, Sue and her daughter have a wonderful relationship. Every woman faces a unique risk for depression. Who will get it and who won't is unknown. For Sue, medication and therapy have helped her recover emotional balance.
I've been lucky. I had 3 hospitalizations for depression in the early years of my illness, and fortunately none since 1988. So I'm very pleased that that's the case. I've been able to be maintained with medication and therapy and taking care of myself.
Struggling with feelings is what depression is all about. For men, this can be a sensitive issue. Most are uncomfortable even discussing it.
A great many men experience and express depression very differently than women do, and we simply don't see it.
Terrence Real is an author of a book on men and depression entitled, "I Don't Want to Talk About It."
I like to say a man is about as likely to admit depression and ask for help as he is to ask for directions.
Barry Kingston knows how hard it is to discuss one's emotions. Like many men, he's done his best to hide his pain.
When I was 14 years old, my 16-year-old brother Wayne died about 3 days before Christmas. And it forever changed Christmas for me.
Depression that follows the death of a loved one is called situational depression. After his brother's death, Barry Kingston's life was forever changed.
I never was really able to overcome the overwhelming sense of loss and grief that I experienced every Christmas, whether I tried to prepare myself for it or not.
By any standard, Barry was successful and focused and should have been happy.
Suburban home, same wife, 2 beautiful, wonderful children. But despite that, I was depressed the whole time.
It's central to our culture's idea of masculinity that we're on top of it. And a depressed man is someone who has been brought down by feelings.
Male depression can hide behind many faces: risk-taking, abusive outbursts, or self-destructive behavior. Hard-working Barry made an enormous effort to keep his problems inside.
What I wanted to do was just crawl back into bed and pull the covers over my head and go to sleep and just be left alone.
White adult males are at the highest risk for suicide. When they try it, they usually succeed.
I was driving home from work and I had some really frightening thoughts about how out of control I felt and what I might do to myself, how I might harm myself.
This condition will not get better if it doesn't get treated. This is not a self-help condition. And it will get remarkably better if it does get treated.
Barry got help, and a combination of therapies allowed him to start dealing with his depression.
We all have stuff that gets in our way. And if a counselor, a therapist, a social worker can help you to explore some of those issues, and you can deal with them and set them aside and move on, then you'll just be further down the road towards happiness, fulfillment, and contentment.
Depression is a psychiatric success story. Between 80 and 90% of the people who seek treatment report substantial relief.
I wasn't afraid to ask for that help, and that's real critical. That's real important, because I don't think that it's something you can solve by yourself, because that's another misconception, right? Is if you're strong enough, you can beat this thing. Well, I've been strong enough, and I've managed to function through it, but I didn't beat it. I needed the assistance of 4 physicians and the trials of a dozen different drugs and combinations to deal with the issues that I deal with. What do you say?
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Most cases of depression create feelings of sadness and despair, but one type can begin with feelings of unlimited energy, enthusiasm, and creativity. 30 years ago, Dennis Hagler, a Peace Corps volunteer stationed in Malaysia, started feeling better than well. He felt inspired.
I went from feeling very good, feeling very productive, to feeling I thought I had to be God.
Dennis was suffering from a condition called bipolar disorder, also known as manic depression.
I had a great future in front of me. I never thought in a million years that I was basically harboring a gene that would cause mental illness for the rest of my life.
They're very accomplished people. They function very well. You wouldn't know it on the street what these people are coping with. And yet, when things crash, they crash.
Mania takes many forms: wild spending, excessive talking, obsessive sexual behavior. But eventually, these activities give way and spiral into crushing depression. 15% of all people with this condition will commit suicide.
It's as if something or somebody stuck a straw in your head and sucked your spirit out.
The cycles of manic depression are unpredictable. Phases of mania can last for weeks. Depressive episodes can stretch for months or years. A naturally occurring salt called lithium is the first line of treatment. It is not an SSRI, but it does smooth out the highs and lows. Unfortunately, lithium didn't help Dennis, and a long period of trial and error with different drugs began.
The isolation is enormous. You don't want to see your friends. You don't want to see anybody. Socialization is almost impossible. So isolation, I think, is one of the main problems with depression.
As Dennis struggled with his condition, a new form of therapy emerged: support groups.
You're not acting like a normal person.
For 20 years, I was pretty much out in the cold with this, alone with this, and never met people that had it other than in the hospital. And then I saw that they were all just like me, and that they had all gone through the same things, and that we had a connection more than I've had with anybody I ever met.
It doesn't go away after
30 years after his first episode, Dennis's story reminds us even the most difficult cases of depression can improve with treatment.
You know, like it's from the inside, and you're talking about this is from the outside. And what was...
In the past, before effective medications were discovered, treatments for depression could be primitive: heavy sedation, padded cells, sometimes, in the worst cases, electric shock. Many people were simply locked up and forgotten.
I bet you think these are joysticks, don't you? Well, they're not. These are actually electrodes used in a treatment for depression that most people think is long gone: shock therapy.
Actually, electroconvulsive therapy, ECT for short, doesn't deserve a bad rap. I talked with Dr. Mike Henry at McLean Hospital and learned ECT is an effective treatment for severe cases of depression.
What exactly is convulsive therapy?
Convulsive therapy is using this machine, or a machine like this, to deliver an electrical stimulus to the brain to cause a grand mal seizure.
Though scientists don't know why, seizures seem to restore balance in the chemical makeup of the brain.
An average course of ECT is 8 to 12 treatments, generally given on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. You'll notice on these electrodes...
The procedure uses two paddles to deliver a carefully determined dose of electricity to induce a seizure that lasts between 20 and 150 seconds.
This is about as physiologically stressful as climbing up 4 flights of stairs.
ECT is one of the safest treatments for severe depression and mania. It is only used when medication and talk therapy have failed and when a patient's safety is at risk.
Like most treatments, the earlier you get somebody who's depressed, the more effective it is.
Interestingly enough, men and women don't always need the exact same dosage.
Men have
Harder heads.
thicker skulls than women. And you've known
Heard
this.
it here. Say it again. Say it again.
Men have thicker skulls than women. And so there's more resistance to the electricity.
Ah.
This simply is proving what women have known from centuries.
The difference between men and women aside,